with your flies down for the whole gig, right? You're going to be getting funny looks. Okay, so last night I was playing at the Ship Inn in Lyme Regis with the JakeLoosemore trio, plus one extra. The one extra is me. Jake's my good buddy, and he's got this trio with Matt Kitchener on drums and Joe Leese on bass. And he asked if I would come along and play, you know, out of pity for me, right, to be honest. And I thought I'd use it as an opportunity to take the PRS Silver Sky and play it for the first time live. And let's talk about that for a bit. This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. So, I guess before I get onto the negatives with this, talk about the positives. And the positives with the PRS Silver Sky, in my opinion, is that it's a perfectly decent guitar. I picked this up for £1,100, or Jake did, and if he needs a backup, basically this will be for him. I think you can get them used for around that sort of £1,400, £1,500 price. And that, to me, I think you're getting quite a lot of bang for your buck with the Silver Sky, and you know, check out some other videos on them by all means. I think if you check on like a retailer that weighs their guitars individually, that on the whole the Silver Skies tend to be quite nicely proportioned in terms of weight, and I think trend a little lighter than, for instance, and Fenders at the moment. That's kind of the positives with it. I've done a couple of other videos with the Silver Sky already, but what I like about it, it feels exactly like a Stratocaster to play. 7.25 inch radius is not an issue for me. The pickups, I think, sound really decent. Yeah, so all in all, it's just like a polite version of a Strat. There's nothing too much to complain about on that front. I think it looks okay as well. There's nothing glaringly that someone who didn't know about John Mayer would necessarily pick up on it. But here's the here's the problem then. One of those guitars, so the guy who runs the Ship Inn is a guy called Ben.
Ben on the electric guitar, guys.
Also met Finn, who lives above the pub, so never sleeps, presumably. Really nice chap. Hey, Finn. You might have some footage that I might share at another stage. But yeah, Ben's used to be a session player in London, has moved down to Lyme Regis, and yeah, just runs a pub there and puts on live music, because I guess that's what he loves. And he got up and played a couple of tunes with us on an SG and a broken Fender, I think DeVille, something like that. Anyway, sounded great guy. And there were kind of like jokes already going around sort of playing slow dancing and stuff, which I'm all up for because it's quite a big tune anyway, right? But I was like, I am playing a John Mayer signature, and Ben was like, yeah, like aren't they like about $4,000 or something? I was like, no, I got it for £1,100. He didn't really believe me. I think people still have a perception that the Silver Sky is a bit more expensive than it actually is. So I think the street price is somewhere around £2,500, but they're constantly available. Like right now, you'll probably find on Anderton's and Peach, you can grab them for £2,000, which I think is about what I think of as being like the top of the price range that I would pay for a guitar in general. Beyond that, I think it gets a bit expensive, but I think there's the perception that with the Silver Sky that you're overpaying for it, and you're like buying into this status thing and this thing that's a bit like a Rolex or a bit like a two-rock amplifier. But actually, they're, I think, built a little bit more in the ethos of the earlier Strats, where it's just like, well, it's kind of like a workhorse. They're priced for the working musician, is my opinion, like £2,000. Whereas I think like a custom shop, £3,500 is, and like even Sirs now, where they're £3,500, not necessarily out of reach for the average musician, but kind of getting to that point, right, where it's, you know, a very good month's wages for a gigging guitarist, right? It's summer month's wages maybe. Whereas the Silver Sky is more affordable. But then the other thing that you're batting up against, so is, I think people that play guitar in general are going to know what the Silver Sky is, and it feels like you're kind of playing against a bit of a perception, because it's such a thing where people have such strong opinions about this guitar and John Mayer. Well, I think most of them are kind of unwarranted anyway, but probably you'll see some chaps in the comments on this video. I'll encourage you to say what you would think of someone who turned up playing a Silver Sky. Now, I can think of some great examples of players like Rob Harris from Jamiroquai, who's gigged a Silver Sky, but I think because he's like respected and you know who he is already, that you kind of like be accepting of it. And as well, like Philip Sace has been playing Silver Skies. Again, if you're like a really good player, I think you'll probably get away with it, but there's going to be some people that maybe like look down at their noses at you, I think unfairly, because I think a Silver Sky is actually quite a sensible choice at the moment, aside from, you know, getting judged at gigs. But holds its tune really well, sounds really good, plays like a Strat, sounds like a Strat, has one of the same kind of problems that I've faced with a Strat live, in that the balance between the neck pickup and the bridge pickup is kind of tricky. So you've got that two worlds Strat thing going on, where it's like, right, well, am I going to kind of cater my tones towards this end of the instrument or this end of the instrument? It's a whole battle, but that is kind of the world of being a Strat player in general, right? So there is that. It sustains really nicely, a resonant kind of guitar. I think it's going to be a guitar that I hold on to for quite a while, and maybe try and sort of get some natural wear occurring on it. I think these guitars, 2018 to now, they've had quite an interesting story so far. It'd be interesting to see more uptake, and whether, you know, people, you know, are going to continue to buy into them despite having John Mayer. I think there is this idea that some people have had that, well, what if it was like a non-John Mayer signature, which I think is sort of impossible. It doesn't say John Mayer on it anywhere but here, right? So but it is, of course, his and Paul's design. So, but there's nothing about it which I think is particularly, like, it's just an average looking guitar at the end of the day, I think, once you actually get it on stage and play with it. So yeah, that's kind of that. You're going to get some judging looks from other guitarists potentially, but as long as you're comfortable with that, you're probably right. It's sort of like turning up to a gig with your flies down for the whole gig, right? You're going to be getting funny looks. I think that's just the way I felt anyway. And I do feel like I played a couple of gigs with a 2-rock amplifier, and I felt a little bit like that with that, where it's kind of like a little bit of a display of something. Like, I spent a lot of money on this amp, which some part of that I didn't feel entirely comfortable with. But I know that the Silver Sky, you know, I got this for a great price, so it's a little bit of a different scenario where it's like, well, actually it's a really good guitar for the money. So it doesn't have those same, you know, display of wealth things as some other guitars. You know, you probably wouldn't judge a guy for turning up to a gig and playing a custom shop or a Gibson Les Paul, these sorts of things. So it's perfectly fine to play a Silver Sky, I reckon. I won't rest until all of you guys are playing Silver Skies, especially you guys that really hate John Mayer and hate the Silver Sky. I won't rest until you're playing them. But yeah, let me know if you've been gigging a Silver Sky, if you played one and hated it. All those thoughts are welcome in the comments. It's just a bit of fun in it, let's be honest. Yeah, it was a good fun vibe. Apparently one of the busiest nights at the bar they've had in that pub, so that's really nice. We will be back there, so I don't know if any of you guys watching are, you know, locals to the Lyme Regis ship in, but if you want to get involved, I think we're playing there in October. I'll let you know closer to the time if that's a thing of interest, but maybe email me and I can let you know if I remember.